Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, which is all about flying an ILS approach into a chosen airport manually, using the dials, in this case in the Cessna 152, using your radio panel, or radio panel in the aircraft, or your actual Logitech radio panel as well, to practice ILS approaches. So let's not dilly-dally, let's get on with the video. Okay, so we're going to start off in the main menu in Flight Simulator. I'm on PC, but this will work on Xbox as well. I'm on PC because I've got my radio panel attached and I like to play with it sometimes. I'm going to go to World Map, and if you're going to follow this tutorial, type in the search box here KDEN. That should be Denver International, should come up here, the first choice. Click on that. There we go. This is the airport, in fact, we're going to land into. So, get off that. What I want to do is find an airport, and I know Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport is close to it, because I don't want to do anything else but set up an ILS approach for this video. VOR navigation will come in a later video. I think you should really be practicing ILS manual approaches first, because obviously you need to get the aircraft down safely. So we're going to go to Rocky Mountain Metropolitan. I'm going to set a runway heading in towards Denver. So runway 12 to take off from. 12 left, or 12 left. Set as departure. Let's just zoom out a little bit. So we've got our departure airport. That's all we're going to set up. I want to land on runway 8 here at Denver International. But I want to do an ILS landing, so I've got to find the ILS frequency for this. So what we're going to do, we're going to switch to Google. And I'm going to type in Google here, KDEN ILS frequencies. I'm just going to start typing frequency. Frequency should come up here, has a search suggestion. Just click on that. And there's different things will come up here. Now for this, I found, just scrolling down a little bit, this www.flightplan.com is a brilliant source to find ILS frequencies and information about airport. It's a free source that you can go to. So I'm going to select this one here. It's about the 4th choice down. And in here, if we look at this information here, runway and approach info for KDEN, you can see here 08, the ILS frequency, gives it here, ILS DME, is 10890. So that's the one we're going to choose. Make a note of that, 108.90. We'll go back to the simulator. And the other thing that you should be doing if you're following this lesson, this tutorial, in your choice of aircraft, ensure that you got the Cessna 152 selected. Any livery will do there. And ideally, if you're practicing this, practice this on something like clear skies or at the most scattered clouds. I tried this with live weather, and it's pretty much icy and snowing in Denver at the moment, so I couldn't see a thing. Really couldn't make head or tail of the airport. Practice it first in something like clear skies or scattered clouds or something of that sort, and then go back to live weather once you're confident with this procedure. So with all that set up, let's go fly. One other thing I'll mention, when I take off, I'm taking off in a direction of 120 degrees. I'm going to come round to the east, so 90 degrees roughly, to line up with the airport. I'll show you that in flight. Let's go fly. Okay, so we're set up on our departure airport. Let's just move the view down to the radio panels. Now, I'm not going to record this on camera. I'm just going to twiddle my knobs on my radio panel, on my Logitech radio panel. I'll link the video I did about the radio panel in the top right. But the readings we want to change here are our nav readings, which is this one here, nav 1. So if I move my inner knob on my radio panel, you'll see the numbers change there. I want to get it to 108.90 if you remember, and that's perfect. I'm just going to hit the standby switch. You can do this down here if you want to. I'm just using my radio panel. Just going to hit the standby switch. So that's now my active nav. Nav 1, 108.90. Now what will happen when we get up in the air, this dial here, you'll start to see, once we're up in the air and get nearer to the ILS frequency, this will start to come live. Once that happens, I'm going to explain what we need to do to fly a manual ILS frequency. In later videos, like I said, I'll be doing VOR, nav to nav navigation, VOR to VOR navigation, that type of thing. We'll be utilizing both dials, but for this video, we're just going to concentrate on this top right dial here. So with all that set up, just keep a note, take a note of your altitude. If you're following this flight and doing it yourself, you'll notice you're over 5,500 feet above sea level here. To capture the nav, really, we want to get past 8,000 feet. So once we take off, we need to start climbing as well. I'll explain more about that once we're up in the air. Let's just throttle up, release the parking brake, and go for a fly. Remember to head towards KDEN. We want to come towards, we're heading roughly towards an easterly direction, 90 degrees anyway, but we'll just turn a little bit to our left. I do have my flaps. I don't really need flaps for this runway, so I'll just raise the flaps there, take off. Ooh, a bit drastic. Gotta remember my Logitech flight yacht system is quite limber. I must be aware of that. It's lovely to fly with it again though, I do enjoy it. Just gonna come, ensure that I'm climbing, and I'm just gonna come to my left a little bit. And I've also got, and I would suggest it highly for this if you're practicing, under assistant options, turn under POI, points of interest, turn on your airport markers so you see the airports ahead of you. Unless you're hardcore and you keep the airport markers off, I do sometimes, but for this flight it's quite useful. Just come to our left, keep climbing, you can see we're in a climb there. Just going to trim up so that we keep climbing. We do need to climb quite rapidly. Before long, the ILS frequency will become live and you'll see these dials, these lines change. Once that happens, I'll explain what we need to do and what the lines are. So we're heading roughly in the right direction. We're being blown to the right there slightly, just compensate. That should be fine. Let me get my aircraft properly configured here. Just keep an eye on these lines. Once the frequency, once we get near the ILS frequency, that will become live, so to speak. Or active. Live. Sure you know what I mean. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is just hit active pause and explain what's going on. So the aircraft's not moving at the moment. Explain what's going on with this dial. So basically, best way to explain this line going up and down is our horizontal reading. So we're to the left of that line. We need to bank right in a moment to catch up, so I need to bank right. So that line comes to the centre. Once it starts to come to the centre, I'll straighten the aircraft up, let that line come to the centre and try and keep it in the centre. It means we're on a perfect approach, perfect line for our chosen runway, runway 8 at KDEN in this case. That line above us there, that's our vertical bearing. So basically we're below the ILS, which is correct at the moment because we need to gain altitude. Once that line starts to come down, I start to decrease the throttle and try and keep that line in the center so that we have a reading on this dial of something like this, both flying perfectly centered. It's quite difficult to do. It's easier said than done. So I'm just going to unpause the sim. Bank to the right. That's the first priority. Try and get our horizontal bearing into the center and keep it there. Like I said, that will mean we got a perfect approach to our runway. Look at the scenery around. I can't resist. Lovely. My lovely purple pink plane. Okay, that line's starting to move in. It takes a bit of concentration this now. So I'm just going to straighten up. I'm just going to back to the left a bit because I can see that line's going to overshoot me. And the idea is to keep that line perfectly centered where it is now. Now it's just moving to the left again, so I'm banking to my left. Making life difficult for myself because I'm explaining this as I go. But once you get the hang of it, I think this is our airport ahead of us. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes easier. Keep climbing. We're below the ILS frequency. Vertical frequency bearing, so I need to keep climbing. Yeah, you see I well overshot that line, so I'm still banking left. Once that line starts to move back to center, a horizontal bearing, this line going up and down, once it starts to move back to center, I can straighten up there because I don't want to overshoot it again. Now it's moving back to the center. I'm just going to follow it back round to the right, being buffered by the wind. That's our airport, in fact, I think. Soon become clear once we're about 15 nautical miles out. It should tell us what airport that is. I'm just going to keep it there. Let that line come back to centre, maybe bank to my left a little tiny bit. I can see it's still moving back into the centre. Just going to keep it there. Once you've got it centred, try and keep it centred. And that's easier said than done. Yeah, that's definitely our airport ahead of us there. There we are, Denver International. Just back to the right slightly just to keep that line centered. Keep climbing. I want our vertical bearing to come down, that line going left to right to come down, and then get that in the center and try and keep that in the center as well. And I'll do that by controlling my throttle. And I may need to trim slightly just to keep it there as well, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, and absolutely do practice this with the especially if you're quite new to Flight Simulator. Assistant options, point of interest, POI, and just turn your airport markers on. And with ideally something like clear skies or scattered clouds. Scattered clouds adds a bit of wind, just be aware of that, so you might be buffered about a bit. But it's not too drastic that you're going to start, hopefully, start dropping from the sky. Hopefully not. Wow. Even now I'm still amazed by Flight Simulator. Incredible. Lovely area to fly around in this. Somebody mentioned in one of the comments that Denver's known as the nosebleed capital because it's so high above sea level. And I can believe that, but it's a lovely area, isn't it? Like I said, flying this on live weather, you'll often find that the cloud hits the ground. If you're not used to manual ILS approaches, practice it first, like I said, in something like scattered clouds or live or clear skies. And we should start seeing our runway, should start being highlighted to make things a little bit easier. Start to see a bit of flashing in front of us soon. Let me just concentrate, keep concentrating while you're in this configuration, this far from the airport, on your dial here. Keep those lines centered. Still need to climb. I am full throttle. I believe it's this runway straight ahead of us here by the looks of things. We can just about see it. There we go. So that's horizontal line is pretty much perfectly centered. I think I can see our vertical line starting to move down a little bit now. You can indeed I can. I'm just going to throttle back a little bit here. I don't want to shoot that now. I've come off my... See, it takes a lot of practice just having to bank right to keep our horizontal line centered as well now, because that's come off a little bit. That's okay, I should be able to get it back. I can see the runway roughly ahead of me there too. No issues. Let's just take advantage while I'm in flaps 1 speed, I believe, and just go to flaps 1 and compensate with trim. So it does like to flare. Don't want to drop altitude too much, make sure that vertical line starts coming down. Bear with me while I just concentrate on this. It's not easy, but once you do it, you get a massive sense of accomplishment, so I will recommend doing this. It's basically the hardcore flying like we used to do in the flight simulator, early flight simulator days, like early pilots did in the golden olden days. Well, not so much golden olden days, but you know, 20-30 years ago. You'd have to do this. You didn't really have autopilot in your aircraft unless you were extremely lucky. Autopilot was just coming in, when was that, 20-30 years ago? Just becoming common. Or maybe 30+ years ago, I don't know. The old Sims of 40 years ago certainly didn't have autopilot in these types of aircraft. You would have to get used to flying this way. You can see the lines now, our horizontal lines drop below us. Wasn't concentrating there. So let's just chase that down a little bit. I don't want it to go too far below us. And there's cloud, probably ideal weather conditions now, obscuring our view. Just so I can concentrate on the instruments. Yeah, the airport's right there, the runway's right there, it's flashing slightly. So I know I'm lined up for it. I'm just come off the horizontal line there. I'm just going to have to decrease the throttle and dive a little bit just to get that line back towards the centre. Just watch my speed a little bit there, because I don't want to be in over danger of speeding or over speeding. And I've still got my flaps deployed there. Just got to be a little bit wary. Still something I'm getting back used to. I used to do this all the time in flight sims. Now I'm just trying to remember how I did it, and yeah, I'm slowly getting back into these swinger things with it. Near to the bank to the right, my horizontal line going up and down, is now showing that I'm left of it. And that vertical line, the line going from left to right, is starting to come back up, which is good. There we go, just come back to the left now, pretty much lined up with that runway roughly. Just need to come back to the left. You can see it's a lot of work, but do try this, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, a huge sense of accomplishment once you get used to it. Just your throttle as you go. Okay, so I'm trying to get both those lines back to centre. I'm getting there. It's not a bad approach. I'm a bit high. Rather be high than too low. I'll just let that line come back to me. Throttle down a little bit just so I drop altitude a little bit quicker to get that line back to the centre. And again, up to the left of the horizontal line. They get a little bit more sensitive, these lines, as you move closer to the runway. Just be aware that once you've got the runway in sight, like I have now, I could just follow that down manually. I'm not going to in this video because I want to follow these lines as much as possible to get the perfect approach into the runway, as perfect as I can get. It's close to perfect. And if you're new to this Back to Basics series, at the end of this video I'll link Back to Basics 1. Just in case you're new to the series, what I'm trying to do and achieve in these videos is to gradually build up your skills in Flight Simulator. These are quite advanced skills now. But gradually gets a little bit more and more advanced to start to learn new procedures and more advanced procedures, and goodness knows what, look at that perfect line there. Perfect line. I'm proud of that. It will soon start to go skew whiffy. Those needles do become more sensitive the closer you get to the runway. But yeah, you can't get better than that. So though saying that, now I need to just increase my throttle a little bit. The horizontal line's going up. When I get a little bit closer, I'll go to flaps 2, second stage of flaps. Just so I can control that landing a little bit better. Yeah, it was a perfect line, now it's come off slightly. And there's a bit of wind just to add to my misery there. But as you can see, I've got the runway in sight there. I'm a little bit low now. Try and fix that. There we go, coming back, that's great. Speed's a little bit fast, I'll bleed it off over the runway. In fact, I'm close enough to the runway to go to flaps 2, just compensate with your trim there that does like to flare up. Just try and put it back to the configuration you had previously. There we go, we're slowing down nicely now. I can control this approach with my yoke and throttle, so there you go. That works out fairly well, slightly to the right, left a bit there, the runway, for a perfect line, but it's okay. I'm there enough on the centre line, aren't I? Yeah, do practice. It's good fun, good sense of achievement once you do get it down. It's just great fun. It's just like the old school type flying. Oh, let's just control that. Lovely to do this with the Logitech flight yoke system, nice and gently. Down we come. Lovely, lovely. Let's just brake. Stick on my parking brake there. That's okay. I'm still rolling forward a little bit. That's okay. So there you go. That's a manual ILS approach into your chosen runway. In this case, it was KDEN. Let me know your thoughts on this video. Subscribe for more, many more of these videos on the way. And I'll see you soon.